Well, good morning. Good morning. It's good to be back with you for another of our Breakfast with Jesus get togethers here, Facebook and YouTube, simulcasting. Oh, my goodness. But it's good to be back. We're continuing our slow walk through the Gospel of Mark and just so much good stuff here. I just get blown away every time, I start to really dig back into some of these stories and truths and just all the good stuff that the Lord has for us here. He really has provided so much, everything really that we need for our lives to be all that He ever desired for them to be. It just takes some time to kind of dig into it, right? To spend some time to get to know Him, get to know His heart for us. I think that is one of the, if not the biggest key that I think a lot of folks miss. They just don't really get to know His heart. And so there's just so much, I guess, deception and all kinds of crazy ideas out there about God that have gotten developed and, put out there, and they're just not true. And so we're doing what we can to try to correct the record, right? But good morning, Marie. Good morning, Joanne. Good to see both of you jumping in right here at the beginning. And so yesterday we were talking about the parable. My goodness, no, the story of how Jesus was multiplying food with His disciples, and just some of the amazing things that we see in that story for ourselves. And today I want to kind of look at the second half of this thing, because there's such amazing truth here. And actually, I want to jump into Matthew's version of this story. It's out of Matthew 14. I should have looked it up before, but I just realized that, I wanted to do that. So let me see here. Where is this now? Matthew 14:22. Is that the right one? No, I guess not. Where am I here from? Okay. Yes, 14:19. That's what I'm looking for. So what it says in Matthew's version is a little different. It says, ordering the multitudes to recline on the grass, He took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up toward heaven, He blessed the food. Breaking the loaves, He gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave to the multitudes. And then, of course, we have them picking up all the leftovers. But here, Matthew brings out a very interesting detail about how this all happened. We assume when maybe we first read this, right, that Jesus was the one who was doing the miracle of multiplying this food to this crowd of probably more like 15,000, or could even be closer to 20,000. It says 5,000 men. We understand that in that day, that culture, they unfortunately had a bias in that direction. But if you would add in women and children, I mean, it's very easy to believe that the size of this crowd was more like 15 or 20,000 people. So, on first reading, most of us look at this and go, wow, what a miracle. Jesus multiplied these 5 loaves and 2 fish to feed that large crowd. But as Matthew brings out, the way this actually worked was Jesus, he broke the loaves and the fish and gave a piece of each, right? Each disciple basically got a piece of bread and a piece of fish and was sent out to a certain portion of that crowd. So think about it, right? Just picture for a moment that it's you, okay? You got a piece of bread and a piece of fish in your hands, and Jesus just sent you out into a crowd of, just say, for 1,500 people. All right, 1 piece of bread, 1 piece of fish. Go feed that that crowd of 1,500. That's pretty daunting, right? It's like, wait, what? But this is what happened. As these disciples went out and broke off a piece of bread, handed it out, broke off a piece of fish, handed it out, what was in their hands never diminished in size. So the miracle of feeding this number of people actually took place in the hands of the disciples themselves. This wasn't merely Jesus, right? As amazing as, of course, that would be if he was the one that was breaking it off and just, no, he handed out the resources that were available to the 12 disciples, and they went out, and as they broke off pieces and gave to the people, what they had in their hands never diminished in quantity. That's where the miracle occurred. And so as we understand that, as we begin to really kind of wrap our mind around that, what do we, what's the lesson there? What's the takeaway for us in our modern day situation? Well, as I mentioned yesterday, Jesus told the disciples, go look. What do you have? Right? Because they're asking him, well, what do we do? If we had a year's salary, we wouldn't probably have enough to go buy food for these people. Right? So Jesus said, what do you have? Go look. And so what does that mean? Well, as I started to share with you yesterday, there's a partnership that the Lord wants to initiate and to establish with each of us, right? And a partnership is way different than I think most of us have ever considered our relationship with him to be, right? We just figure, well, God, I'm going to pray and I'm going to ask you to do stuff and I'm going to tell you what the needs are and I'm going to pray and then I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to wait for you to answer my prayers. I mean, that's pretty much how I was taught years ago. And, when people were teaching about prayer and about what we're supposed to do, we're supposed to pray and believe God and wait for the answer. That's not what we see illustrated here. We see a literal partnership between the disciples and God, whereby if they didn't do their part, those people wouldn't have got fed. Right? Just imagine for a moment that one of the disciples or whoever, how many, looked at that and said, this is ridiculous. How do you expect me to feed 1,000+ people with one piece of bread and one piece of fish? That's stupid. That's nuts. I can't do that. And they just basically sat down with their food and didn't do anything. See, this is what God wants us to understand about this partnership thing. He will absolutely show us whatever the resources are that we have at our disposal, whatever that may look like. It may look the equivalent of just a piece of bread and a piece of fish. But if we will agree with him when he says, this is what you have, start with that, right? See, that's the step of faith that then allows him to do his part. Because what is his part? His part is to do the supernatural through us. His part is to do what we can't do. And he wants to do that. But what he wants us to understand about how it works is that we're not to be simply passive observers of what God wants to do, right? That's not our role, is to simply pray and kind of sit back and watch and see and wait. No, we're supposed to be engaged in whatever it is that we're asking him about. Okay, Lord, what's my part? What is it that you want for me to do in this situation so that as I do that, well, you can now move and do your part, which is the supernatural multiplication of resources and abilities and power and authority, all the things that, that we have as potential because we're one with Jesus, right? Because he lives in us, we have so much potential. But again, it requires us to make a step of faith, to move out in a partnership arrangement, so that as we do, then he's able to release his part, his provision into that situation. And we see this so clearly illustrated here. That's what they ended up doing. And everybody got fed. And beyond that, there was such that when they went around and collected the leftovers, Mark says it was 12 full baskets. So that's like with every group of people, there was a basket of leftovers. That's how great the multiplication was. That's how great the provision was. And here's the thing. I don't think we've touched in our exploration of the kingdom, in our experience of the kingdom. We're used to having enough, or hoping and praying that there's enough, and even if God does a miracle and stretches what we have to be enough, we kind of like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. I'm gonna thank God, right? We sit back, wow, look at the miracle God provided. We had enough. We haven't yet gone beyond the enough to the more than enough, where there's now leftover resources that can then be put into some other aspect of God's will, some other aspect of the kingdom. So I'm challenged personally by this, and I hope you are as well, that I don't want to just simply settle for a miracle of enough, because that's not what happened here. I want to see a miracle of provision, of multiplication, of all that the Lord wants, that not only meets the need at the moment, but also results in an abundance left over that can then be taken and reinvested in some other kingdom endeavor, some other project that the Lord has for us. And I'm actively looking at, how do we do that? What are the means that we can take the kingdom resources that he provides, that he multiplies, that he releases through us, and to find the leftover, find the more, right? And see, how do I invest that? How do I use that? What does that look like? I'll be honest with you, I don't know yet. Okay. But this challenges my heart to believe for that in terms of what's possible. This is what Jesus demonstrated through his disciples. This is what's possible, that we can, partner with the Father in whatever he's called us to do, and believe that whatever the meager resources that we may have are, it's not going to matter, because he's going to provide, he's going to multiply what we have, he's going to cause there to be enough. But there was more than enough. There was leftover from the enough, okay? And so that's where I'm at right now. Say, Lord, I want to understand this. I want to function in this. I want to see this happen, so that we are functioning to the fullest extent. Because who knows what they did with the leftovers? I would imagine that they distributed them in some way. They made provision for those, in that region. I don't know. But I mean, obviously it wasn't done simply, to make a nice pyramid of baskets and say, wow, look at that. No, this was stuff that was then reinvested, to bless people in that area. And so that's what I'm looking for. And so I challenge you as well. Let's ask the Father, Lord, show us, well, how does this work? How do we get positioned so that we not only experience the miracle of enough, but we also can see the more than enough for your kingdom purposes and for your glory? Man, that's exciting. I love this, how he wants to stretch us beyond where we are. And so, listen, if the Lord gives you stuff, if you see things, if you start to get revelation on this, let me know. Don't be stingy. All right. I want to hear about it because, we're all in this together. We're all learning together about what the Lord wants to do and what's possible. And so I would really appreciate hearing whatever he shows you, because I'm going to learn from that as well. And we'll be able to, do more because we're kind of connecting and helping each other out. All right. So let's try that. All right. Good morning. Let's see who else we've got to say good morning to. We've got Robert. Good morning. Donna, Eileen, Jane. How are you? Melissa. Good morning. Fred and Jason. Good to see you guys. Thank you again so much for taking a few minutes to hang out. Hey, be my share bear buddy if you would please, and share this video with folks on your timeline. And again, if you would like to share whatever God's saying to you or questions that you might have, that's my email. You can also send me a Facebook private message, and I would love to talk with you. So thanks again for spending this time, and I look forward to being back with you tomorrow, 8:30 Eastern, for some more Breakfast with Jesus. Till then, you be blessed.
Thank you, Lord.